Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys Board Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're coming to you with another Thursday episode sponsored by Gray Fox Games, who are our sponsors for this board gaming podcast that we do. So, huzzah.
And there's a discount code.
Oh, that's right. I wanted to start trying to say that at the beginning of the episodes. Thank you, Jeff. They are currently supporting us by giving all of our listeners 20% off on all of their non-exclusive items over at their web store. So go to grayfoxgames.com, buy stuff, and then when you're checking out, put in the discount code MHGG Spooky, and they will give you that 20% off. So, MH Spooky. Aha.
I was about to say.
MH Spooky.
I was going to say you either did it wrong this time or last time.
Yeah. No, so just MH Spooky, MHSPOOKY, to get that 20% off, courtesy of our awesome sponsors. So go buy Gray Fox stuff. We're now full on shilling.
We actually need to play their games.
I know. I've got a stack of them.
We got 4 of them in right before shutdown. And we haven't played any of them.
Yeah. I could probably meet up with one of you guys to pass them off, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, so let's start this board gaming podcast off by talking about board games, because I think that this was another week where we all three actually played real physical board games. You guys have been doing that a lot lately because you're actually being more social than me. But I actually played a physical board game for the first time in a few weeks. So I'll go ahead and start. Megan and I decided that it had been too long since we played some Spirit Island, and so we set it up, and we decided to leave it set up, and we're going to play kind of a continuing game of it. So they have
Is this the base game or the expansion? Or both expansions?
We are playing with Branch and Claw. I don't have anything beyond that because I was broke when the last Kickstarter was going. So although everybody now has it and I've seen all the stuff and I'm really jealous, I don't have it. I think I have one small set of one of their original promo spirits. I can't remember. But for the most part, it's just base game with Branch and Claw expansion. So we played on the thematic maps because I love them and I don't really have any desire to not play on them. We're playing against the Kingdom of Sweden for our adversary. Their main thing that we're playing with is during the Stage 2 stuff, if there's after they explore, if a land that they explored into has more explorers than Dahan, one of the Dahan turns into a town, which sucks. And then we're only playing at level 1, at least for starting. And the effect there is that if they ever do 6 damage to the land during Ravage, you add an extra blight. Thankfully, that has not come up yet. And then we're playing the second wave scenario, which is basically that's how you make it a continuing game where you can play one game and then immediately play a second game on that same setup. And it just gives some different rules for after the game. You remove a bunch of stuff. You cut down to 2 of each of the tokens, so the beasts and the wilds and the illness and strife. You pull back all of the blight, except for 2 per player, and then each game that increases a little bit. And then you do a bunch of stuff with the Dahan, where if there's 3 or more of them, they move around a bit, and then you add a few more to kind of bring it up, just some little housekeeping stuff. And then at the start of each game, you do a couple different things different, where the blight card doesn't change, and blight doesn't really it doesn't quite come and go the same way because it's the same island in theory. And then the way that you do the setup for the invaders changes, and that changes they have rules all the way out to wave 7. So we beat wave 1 and wave 2. We'll be starting wave 3 the next time we play. But it's good. One of the key things is you can't play the same spirits, so you have to be kind of conscious about my favorite spirit is Rampant Spread of Green, but it's I'm really good with that spirit, so I want to kind of save it for later, but I don't want to wait too long to use it because if we lose, then it's just over. I think they do have a setup thing, if you lost, here's what you can do instead. But we're probably just gonna stop when we lose. We're playing till we lose. But yeah, it's been fun. The first game went pretty well. I was Keeper of the Forbidden Wilds, and Megan was River Surges and Sunlight. We dominated pretty handily there. The biggest thing that hurt us is we got an event card. I think it was the first event card of the game, where it was like, spend a bunch of energy to do this effect, or if you can't, do this other effect and take 2 blight from the blight card and remove them from the game, which is just a brutal one to get in a 2-player game right out of the gate, because you only have 4 blight on your healthy island before it flips. And so just losing 2 that went out of the game, you can't even like cure them and get them back on the card. That sucked. And then because we're playing the continuing one, like those don't ever come back. So we're just now at a permanent 2 blight disadvantage. But otherwise that one we won pretty handily. And then the second wave, Megan was Sharp Fangs Behind the Leaves, and I was Ocean's Hungry Grasp, because part of the setup, it shifts their buildings and things towards the coasts, like they're not established on the island at the start of this one. And so I thought Ocean's Hungry Grasp would work really well there. It would have if Sharp Fangs had more ability to move things around. He didn't have a lot of ability. Megan didn't have a lot of ability with that spirit to really push things from the center of the island. So they wrecked the mountains. So we almost lost on Blight. We were real close, but we ended up barely pulling out the victory at the end. And so we've got it set up. We did all the end of game stuff for it, and we're set up to play a third game. And it's just sitting on the table, and we might do that on Wednesday. We both have Wednesday off, so that might be a day we'll go hike in the morning and then come back and throw down on another game or 2 of Spirit Island. We'll see.
Very exciting.
So Jeff, what about you? What have you played?
I have played a game called I don't know which one to start with. Let's start with Arkham Horror.
Yeah, sure.
We played another game, Arkham Horror.
So have you guys played anything separate from each other, or is it going to be just, do you guys want to just joint go at this because you've played all the same things together?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so Zach and Jeff, what have you guys been playing? Go Nats.
Zaf, I think was the title.
Zaf.
The long given title.
I believe so, yeah.
So Zaf, what have you been playing?
We're going to start with Arkham Horror 3rd anyways. So we played another scenario from the new expansion that is the largest map, I believe, by far. Yeah. It uses like Kingsport and Innsmouth and Arkham, so it has like 2 separate little island boards.
Yeah. It has 7 separate neighborhoods.
Yes. And you have to travel to those using the new travel points, because it was just the streets and before that connected the neighborhoods, but now there's like roads and train stations and boats. Those have their own encounters. We fought against Ithaca.
Ithaca, yeah. It was Ithaca's children was the scenario that we did.
Which is the giant ice Sasquatch monster, elder thing. And
yeah.
I was the violinist, and Zach was
the postal worker.
The postal worker that hung around the school.
Way too much, but
way too much. And then I think there was the scientist lady, and I don't remember who Paul played.
He was the gangster.
He was the gangster, yes. And the violinist lady, she is new, pretty sure. Newish?
New, yeah.
And her thing is cool, because you always choose items to start with, and you get all of her items, and then there's an optional thing you can take that is quite powerful, but also is quite debilitating when
annoying
when its thing happens. So you have like this foreseeing knowledge card that you can get, and basically you can re-roll a success, and you don't have to succeed on that success. You can just re-roll the success, and you can either spawn a clue or investigate a clue just for re-rolling that success, which is extremely powerful if you have clues. I had like a great amount of dice being able to be thrown for like warding, and then I got a job because I was looking for money.
Oh, he was desperate for money, and it's just like, oh, do you just want money? No, you got to earn it.
Yeah, and then it just was like, nope, here, get a job. So I became a reporter, and then I got a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is one of the worst dice games of Arkham Horror I've ever seen.
He was regularly throwing like 7 dice for warding, and there were multiple times where he didn't get anything even above like a 3+ or a 4+.
Yeah, I would have failed a bless.
Yeah.
Off 7 dice for all 50/50s. And it was all like 1 to 3s, and I was like, well, guess that's not happening. Paul also had some real nasty dice. He was throwing 9. I think he had one that was like 9 or 10 dice that all came up 1 through 4. No 5+.
Yeah.
I threw the 7 dice multiple times and didn't get even a single success. And I think Paul threw multiple times, more than 7, and didn't get anything. And then my disadvantage thing came out, which is a monster you actually put into the deck. It's the Watcher. It looks like the universe, and it just immediately attaches to you. And anytime that you do a skill check and succeed, you must re-roll one of those successes. And if you then succeed, after that happens, you can spend a clue and get rid of it.
Which wouldn't be so bad if you weren't Jeff and was only ever rolling 1 success at a time.
No matter how many dice I was able to actually get 3 actions worth of dice out once, and nothing happened because I had a spell that wasn't an action, and then I had like a ward, and then I had an investigate or a research or whatever it's called. And out of like 21 dice, maybe 19, I would not get any successes or get 1 success that I'd have to reroll that would then fail. So you can imagine if you're cursed with that, it would be nigh impossible to get it off and or really do anything for the rest of the game. But like, I'm just auto-failing everything. I guess I have to do everything. I have to do things that don't require dice rolls.
Yep.
It didn't help that Wes got blessed 3 separate times. Paul was blessed. You were blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was blessed except me the entire game. But the scenario itself was easy, I guess. Like it seemed a little hard in the beginning because there was like a big Wendigo monster.
Yeah, and the new thing that this scenario introduced besides
an
just
expansion,
a big,
really.
Yeah. Besides a big fucking map was a terror mechanic. So there are these tokens that certain monsters, and you put a couple tokens into the Mythos Cup that spread terror. And what that means is there is a deck that's similar to the what is those? What are those cards called? The with the circle.
Anomaly.
Yeah, Anomaly. It's like Anomaly decks, but they happen anytime you spread terror, you get one of those cards and you put it in a neighborhood, and you take a token and you put it in the neighborhood. But you can never clear those tokens off.
Or we never ran into any way to actually clear it.
I think it's like if they get like super terrorized, then you can start clearing them off, like at the bottom of it. But we never got too far for that.
The amount of terror that you need for each tier was higher than the Doom, because the Doom usually went to 3 at maximum.
Yeah,
where this can go to like,
up to like 5.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah, but the interesting thing on these is when you resolve that card, you can just continue on with your regular encounter. So you don't have to work. It doesn't replace it like the Anomaly does. But you can choose not to do it. I'm assuming if you get like real fucked up on something, like if you only have like 1 health left after it, you can choose not to do a regular encounter. But
a lot of them are just like, read this little tidbit and then something happens. There's no die roll or test. It's just, this happens.
Yeah. Occasionally there would be a test, and it's just if you succeed, then nothing happens. So
instead of bad things.
Yeah, which is always good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was interesting because it started off with an epic monster spawned, and not just like a regular epic monster, but like
a boss
full-
level, like
Yeah,
right
yeah,
before
boss level
you would
size.
fight the ancient one or whatever. It was like their number one minion.
Yes, yeah. So we defeated him, and then
Paul hit
we
him with
had
a car.
Paul hit him with a car, and then we got some clues, and we researched them, and then that did the final. He shot his Chicago typewriter at him, and just did not do much damage the first time.
No.
And next time he did though, and then that was enough for us to research some clues, and then you would just use
After
it as an
Wes
action.
had forgotten to finish the setup and teach
Yes.
and tell
Oh,
us
God,
the rest
yes.
of the scenario, it was like, oh yeah, we also have to kill him, and then you can also do clues to do damage instead of
Yeah.
actually fighting him. And we're like, oh,
No, yeah, it was one of
that's
those things
useful.
that it was a couple turns in. I think I was the one that was like, wait, so what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to kill him, or are we trying to get
Because there was
clues?
nowhere
I'm
to put
confused.
the clues on
Yeah.
the Codex.
And then he was just like, oh, let me actually finish, because as soon as he saw the monster, he was like, oh, we have to fight this, and then he just put the card down.
Yeah, didn't flip it over and continue reading.
No.
But this one
But-
also had like a huge branching, well, not huge, but it had like
Right.
3 different routes you could take to the end of the scenario.
And I think there were more branching paths because it wanted us to get a certain amount of clues on there before Doom came out, like a lot of standard Arkham Horror scenarios. And if you get the clues before the Doom, then it goes one way, and if you get the Doom, it goes the other way, which is the way that we went. So that one had 3 choices after we,
Yeah,
you know,
could
failed the
fight
first
him,
part.
You could banish him, or you could something else,
yeah.
which involved going to all the different parts of the map and doing certain tests in certain spots, and each one of those. And then even the way we went, there was 2 different ways to do that.
Yeah.
And then there's and you actually draw them randomly, so you can have one or the other and this other one. So you're not
Mhm.
going to get the same thing every time. It seemed pretty variable.
Yes, but it was sort of anticlimactic. In the one that we chose,
Yeah.
it seemed like there was a little bit more going on if we had chosen the other one. And then who knows about the third one we didn't get, but it's definitely one I would play again. But I was surprised at how much we really didn't need to move around as normal. And I think part of it was because normally, like we usually have like anomalies around, and those are whenever you get 5 Doom in a neighborhood or 3 Doom in one spot, it becomes an anomaly, and then any Doom that goes on that anomaly just immediately goes to the scenario sheet. This one just had if 6 Doom went into a neighborhood, you would remove the highest amount of Doom from one space and then just put 1 Doom on the scenario sheet. So it wasn't as big a deal to have Doom just around.
Yeah, anomalies aren't a thing in this scenario.
Yeah. And then if there was a spot that was really far away, if we had the option to, we would just pack all the Doom that we could on one spot, so that when it inevitably popped, it would get rid of like 4 or 5 Doom instead of like 2. So
Yeah. And we almost were able to. We would have gotten all the clues up before Doom hit, but it was like the gate burst we drew in the Mythos phase that really did it.
screwed us there. Yeah.
Because like the next round, like all of us succeeded on all of our tests to have finished that. So the old Mythos bag.
Yep. Yeah, and when we failed, when we failed that first part, it was like, oh, add another gate burst in there. It's always just like, oh, god damn it.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
I
I could see
hate-
that happening in this, just because gate bursts aren't
Don't-
as game ending if it happens
Yes,
in the wrong spot.
Yeah, when it first came in, I was like, oh, this is not good, but, only adding just 1 Doom different spaces was not nearly as big a deal.
Yeah, it was a very different mechanic for the game with that terror instead of the Doom.
Correct, yeah. Overall, it was alright. I would definitely play it again to see what other choices there are, and to see if we just got, like, the bad one. It reminded me a little bit of, from the first expansion, there's one that's basically, like, it's between, like, 2 warring gangs, and it was fairly anticlimactic when you, like, chose to help one of them. And it seems like the real ending is if you choose to fight them both, and then that becomes harder, but then it seems like more rewarding versus just like, you did it. It was sort of funny though because it was a lot of the choices were like, oh, you could stop Ithaca. It's like, oh, you could keep it sealed in its realm or defeat it, but we chose to just build a ward on our specific area, and then at the end it was like, all right, well, it just goes to find other prey to feast on, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, this particular area is not fucked, but everything else.
I think
is.
It was like our dimension is safe for 1,001 years.
I'm taking it as Arkham and its suburbs. That's what I'm taking. Just that.
Fuck the rest of the world.
Yeah, fuck the rest of the world.
But yeah, it was a perfectly fine scenario once again.
Yep.
There are a lot more cards in that game now, which is what it needed.
Yes.
That's always the thing we've said about those games is they need more cards and more stuff.
Yeah, and it's got more stuff.
The downside is the new locations they added with this big box expansion don't have as many cards because this is the first one. So,
and I think part of it is just you don't use them for every scenario.
Yeah.
Like it's only specific ones where you tend to use like the Merchant District or Arkham a lot more. So it's good to have a lot more variety. Whereas like if we play another one, we might not see like Kingport, Central Kingsport, or yeah. So I would imagine they would add more the next expansion that they have.
Yeah.
Which it will be disappointing when that expansion comes out because I will have to move to 2 boxes. It is
your 1 box solution will not hold.
No. When I was packing it up yesterday, I was just like, man, I remember there's like more room in here than I remember. Is it just because I always feel like, when you're packing things up the first couple times, it's sort of like you get a sense of how things go and you're able to pack things better. And I thought that's what was happening here. Turns out I had just packed it into the lid by mistake. So I had to take everything out and put it back in. And I was like, oh, this feels right now, unfortunately. Yes. But what we played before that was the new expansion for Civilization: A New Dawn, Terra Incognita. And I had purchased it because I think I was like laying on my bed on Saturday, just looking at my phone, and then Calgary Jeff posted.
Canada Jeff? I call him
Canada Jeff. I mean, yeah, Canada Jeff from Calgary.
Yes.
He posted on our Slack. He was just like, "Oh yeah, I picked up these couple things, and it was the Kang expansion or the Kang scenario pack, which I do have too. So I want to try that at some point."
Yes.
But then he also posted the Civilization expansion, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's out now." And then I posted a picture about 20 minutes later of that expansion in my hands. So this is, I always feel there's 2 types of expansions. There's ones that add just more stuff and ones that add new stuff. Well, you know what? It'd even be a third one is it just replaces a bunch of stuff and it just sort of tries to fix it or make a 1.5 version of it. And that's definitely what this one is doing. When I was unbagging everything and, sorting stuff in my house, it was like, oh, I ended up taking like 40 things out of the game. To be replaced with different cards, and tokens, and whatnot. The biggest thing in this one is that it's trying to be a lot more like Civilization, because I feel a lot of people's complaints about the first one was it felt a little too abstracted to be a Civ game.
Now they're like, we're gonna unabstract a lot of that.
Exactly. Yeah. So now instead of just having a generic army that attacks, you have like
/ control token.
Yeah, / control tokens. They sort of decoupled the control token like reinforcing and the military. Now the military has you have actual armies that move around the board, and that's how you actually attack things. So you also have
because before
districts.
It was like your areas that you controlled were also your armies that then that token would move.
Well, no, it wouldn't even. It's not even that it moved. It's just you had to be within so many spaces.
Yeah. Yes.
And then so it always just be like, oh, I'm within 3 spaces of you here. I'm going to attack you here. Yes. Now you actually have to send an army to do it, and it's like the caravans that you like start with one army, but you get more as you go farther in.
Up to 2.
Yeah, up to 2. Big jump there.
Yeah.
Then there are districts that are added now. So these
which was a big thing in Civ 6.
Yes. For here, like before that, it was just you had regular control tokens, and they just sort of were your area. These control tokens, these districts, there's one of each. So there's like a culture one, a military
one of each
one.
district.
Yes. And they do very specific things depending on what's around them. So it actually makes you plan ahead more for like building on forests, because this thing works better if you have forests. Build it on mountains because you get bonuses for building things on mountains. And then there's governments now in this game. And those are based on each one of your different cards.
Of which there is a new category.
Yes, there's a new category called growth,
which is
and
the district one.
That's how you do districts, and that's also how you reinforce your control tokens. But the governments are so you have a new event dial that spins around, and it has that's where it activates the districts. Before it was like a trade token thing that you got extra trade tokens depending on like how many matured cities you had. That doesn't matter as much anymore. Now it's based on what districts you have. You activate every district that you have. And then there's also one every 6 turns, or 6 rounds, I guess. You get a new government, and so on your focus bar, whatever your bottom 2 cards are. So for the focus bar, it went from 5 cards to 6 cards, but it counts 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But when you use a card, it still goes to the leftmost spot. So that left 1. So it takes longer for you to get better, like more use out of your cards, which I was surprised how much I felt that. Because I think that like there's a big difference between, like even just 1 and 2, and the fact that we have to actually have it go like 3 spots in order to get that.
Yeah.
You felt it, but one way to help counteract that are these governments. So the left 2 cards in your focus bar, when the government symbol comes around, you choose one of those and you activate it as a government. You have a little token that you put on the card, and it has arrows on it. And when you activate that card, you pretend that it is further along the track as many arrows is on the token, which is usually just 1. I think it's just 1 or 2.
Yep.
But that means if you activate it on the 3 and it has 2 arrows on it, then you activate it as if it's a 5. So it makes you better, because you as a government you sort of specialize in that more, which was a good. It was a good thing to add. Although there were many times, I think all 4 of us at one point or another would be like, "Oh, I'm going to activate my card with the government on it, but it's all the way on the right, so I'm getting absolutely no use out of the government."
Yes, for 100%.
Yeah. But it's nice that it's only the 2 cards that are on, that you've most recently used. So it's something that you need to plan for if you're looking to get a specific government.
Yes.
And they also added more objective cards, agendas, I think they're called.
Mm-hmm. The ways you win the game.
Yeah, the ways you win the game. Before there were 3 agenda cards out, and you had to just the first person to get 2 of them was the winner. Or was it 3?
I think it was 3.
It might have been 3. Yeah. Either way, this one is now it's the first person to get 4. Now there are still only 3 agenda cards, but they did like double the amount of agenda cards, which is nice. So you have more variety there. But they also added 2 new victory point cards, which are around taking forts. So forts are a new tile in the game. It's a single hex that you put around the board when you're starting, and these you have to be controlling a fort in order to win. And unlike any of the other agenda cards, when you so for those, whenever you get the objective, you have it and no one can take that away from you. Forts, if someone goes and attacks your fort, they're 100% taking it away from you.
Yes.
And you take your token off and they replace it with yours. There are 2 agenda cards dealing with forts, and it's just if you have 1 or 2. But you can't win without having a fort, so it's nice at least that you can try to at least attempt to stop a runaway leader in this by just taking their fort away from them. But if they have a fort and an army there, then the defender always gets to choose what you attack. So they can say, "Hey, you attack my army instead." So there are, you can fortify it some as if you're trying to defend it. But there are ways to actually influence other people in this game, which was not near. I mean, it was there, but it didn't matter as much in the base game.
Yeah.
Also, the board setup is completely different. Instead of having a full
like a drafted map.
Yeah, in the beginning, this one you have 4 tiles out in the beginning, and then each player puts out their fort and then their capital city tile, and then as part of a movement action, which is either with the caravans or the armies, you can explore, which is you take a token, or not a token, a tile, and you add it to your you add it next to your capital city tile. And it has to be touching the spot where you explored from, and still abide by all the placement rules. But it allows you start with a much smaller map, and then you expand as the game goes on.
Yeah, and you can only expand off of your capital board, so you might be able to explore 2, maybe 3 times.
Yeah, I think you could do 3 if you planned
got real
it well
smart.
enough. Yeah,
And
yes.
but maybe if you wanted to do 3, you'd have to touch one of the boards that your opponent might be on to make it even easier to get over to you, instead of having a nice gap or choke point. So that's something you have to think about. They added a bunch of new civs, a bunch of new wonders. Every civ got their own civ tech, which was something that wasn't in the previous game, so
Correct, yes.
It'll be included with your other ones, so you'll have it depends on the civ, but someone could have their own level 2 industry card. You can take the civ specific one or the other one, but why wouldn't you want to use your civ one that's cooler?
Yes. Yeah.
It adds a little flavor a little more flavor to the civilizations besides that one power. I was playing the Incas. Which would be powerful if there was a chain of mountains, because anytime I would put a control token on mountains, I get to, for free, put it on a mountain, which can then chain to another mountain, etc., 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 until you run out of mountains. And then their tech was, you put a control token down, and if it was in the 5 slot, you get to put a control token down for free on an adjacent mountain. So you could chain it even off of that. But I just never ran into that because the barbarians were too busy running it into me.
The barbarians were just all over him, and using smart tactics of attacking him and then running back to the mountains.
Yeah, I had mountains next to me, and it just kept moving back and forth on the mountains. Yeah. And then it would just wipe out my control tokens, and it was of course on mountains, which means it has a 5 defense, so 5 plus D6, and I'd be attacking, and it usually would not go well, because 5 plus D6, even if they roll a 1, I roll a 6, I would need a bunch of trade resources to modify or add to my rolls, or a higher military, which I just ended up not getting.
Yeah.
Until later.
Yeah, so it would be hard for him to fight it without having to invest in the military.
Yes.
Or something else you could have done too is if you had gotten the district encampment.
The military district, yeah.
Yeah, it lets you just kill a barbarian within 2 spaces.
Yes.
So that's one thing that I did is I had an encampment in the mountains, just overlooking the barbarian spawn point, and every time they came around, I just shot them with arrows and they died.
Yes. Paul did not like the game.
No, he did not. There was a good amount of downtime in this, which I think is partially just due to all the new stuff that we had to learn on this one.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things of sometimes it's harder to like learn a change game, like learn the change part of a game versus just like learning the game from scratch. Because there's stuff that you're in your mind, you're like, oh, it works like this, and then you have to like when you start to do it, you're like, oh shit, no, that doesn't matter anymore. I need to do it this way.
Yes.
And I felt like there was some of that happening here. I do think it works better with 3 people than 4. So I think that helps in that regard. This adds up to 5 players. I don't know if I'd want to play 5 players.
You can get a true Civilization game going.
Yeah, right?
Which would not be ideal.
No. Because it ended up taking us about 2 hours to finish it. And I think just because, like, I could tell with all of the extra stuff that was added, and including the extra, like, victory points that we needed, the extra agendas we had to do, this does increase the length of the game.
Yes.
But for people that like it, I think you will like it more. I know for the most part, I know Wes ended up not being a big fan of the exploration, and instead the just placement at the beginning, like the drafted placement in the beginning, like in the base game, which I can sort of understand. Like I didn't even explore once. I could just, with everything that was, how everything was built, I was able to end up winning by just doing the stuff around me. And anytime I had thought about exploring, I was just like, well, this is taking actions away from what I want, like from what I would want to do to help increase my chance of winning. So it was nice that I didn't have to explore to win, but it also feels a little bit like
maybe you got a good placement.
Yes. Yeah.
Helped a lot with that.
Yeah.
Where I had like not a great placement for districts.
Uh-huh.
Because I didn't have like good forest. I had some okay mountains, but I had built a city there. There was only one spot I could literally build a city at all based on where I placed the fort and where that city state was.
Yeah, that was a big part of it too, is we forgot the placement for a city thing, so at least 3 people, like the turn or 2 after, we were just like, oh wait, you couldn't build a city there. So, and then they had to like redo part of their turns.
Yeah, because they put it next to a city state or next to a fort. Because a fort turns into a city when you conquer it, so you can't put a city next to it.
Yeah, but it was nice that I was able to win and I didn't have to build wonders at all. Because the previous one, it always felt like you really needed to invest in some wonders, but with the 2 fort actions, like the 2 fort agendas that you can win, like usually there are things you can do that aren't wonder specific. And I was able to, like, I had one that was I had to build 4 mature cities on 4 separate tiles, but where I was, there were 4 there were like 4 tiles all right near each other, and so I was able to build cities right near each, like clump around, and so I didn't have to spend a lot of tokens maturing them.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think the changes are nice, but maybe not at 4 players.
Yeah,
just kind of cut it down on the downtime between turns, and just pretty much just cut down on the time. Because one of the best parts, of course, of A New Dawn was it was quick for that kind of game, which this at 4 players makes it not as quick.
Yeah, I was talking to Paul about this after, and I was just like, one of the things that people liked about A New Dawn was it didn't have the time investment that a lot of Civilization games have because of how in depth they are, and through adding some of that depth back, it then increased the time enough to you can be like, well, now this is sort of dragging a bit, and it felt like it was getting caught in those trappings again, at least a little bit, like at the edge of the trappings.
Yeah.
I felt like the first game, like right when you were getting towards endgame, somebody won.
Mm-hmm.
But on this one, I felt like we reached endgame, and then we were still playing for like 4 or 5 more rounds before we were able to finish. Like, technically, the game should have ended 6 rounds before it did.
Mm-hmm.
Because I absolutely fucked up a combat roll against a fort. Like, it was I I only had a chance at losing if it rolled like a 5 or a 6 and I rolled a 1. And that's exactly what happens. And I didn't have I didn't think that was going to happen, so I didn't plan for like a reroll token or anything like that. And it was just like, oh, I thought the game was ending, and it didn't. So, whoopsie.
Which Paul had left that fort open for you to get because he wanted the game to end.
Correct. Yeah, he said that if he was going to invest more than 2 hours in a Civilization-styled game, he would rather just play Clash of Cultures. So,
I need to play Clash of Cultures.
I haven't played
so I
it.
Can compare.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I still like this one, and Wes is another person who's a big fan of it, even though he said, I hate that I like this game, even though I'm so bad at it.
Yeah.
And he said overall he felt the changes improved the game. So I don't know if you didn't like the base game. I would hope this would change your mind, but I think the increase in
I guess it
length
depends on why you hate the base game.
Yes. Yeah. If you felt like it wasn't deep enough, this makes it more deep. But if you did like that it was at least quicker and it felt sort of, not breathy. Breezy, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, light and breezy for Civilization.
Yeah. Then you might have a problem with it there. But
yeah.
Okay.
So that's Civilization.
Yeah. I really want to try it at some point.
Well, if you do, we should do it at 3 players.
Yes.
Yeah.
That way we can just Jeff and I can clearly not mess with each other at all and just focus on you.
Yes.
I mean, I hate you guys.
We can even get the city-state cards that let us move barbarians at the beginning of our turns.
Oh dear.
And in classic Paul, oh god, what's that word? Hyperbole. It's just like that's the worst. Like that's the most broken ability I've ever seen in a game recently.
In any game ever, I would say, was his words. You can't attack with the barbarians with that. You can only just move them a space, but moving them that space at the beginning of your turn can be powerful.
Yeah.
Because then that basically makes them have to attack it.
Yeah, and I mean you do gain trade goods for attacking them, so I feel like it's not bad. It's just how our board was set up that the barbarians were just all over the mountains, just roaming around fucking shit up.
Yeah.
That yeah. But that's where having that encampment district is like real nice, so you can just like
not have to spend a military action to try and do something about.
Yeah, exactly. And not just that, but it's like those activate twice in like for every one barbarian spawn. So like you have, as soon as I built that thing, I was not worried about barbarians again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I've been trying to like remember the whole time you guys have been talking about this. Like, I feel like I preferred just even base New Dawn at 3 rather than 4.
Yes. No, I playing it with 4 helps me remember, oh, that's right, I like this better at 3.
Yeah. So I think continue that. I could see that like continuing with everything you said about this expansion. Like, definitely stick with 3.
Because, I mean, Paul did bring up a good point that for the most part, you aren't that interested in what other people are doing. Until they get near you and you're trying, like, if you're trying to get area, then you may pay attention to like where other people's militaries are if they're near you. But otherwise, it's the majority of the game is optimization around your focus board, which I really do like that part of it. But I can understand if that doesn't grab you or you want to have more interaction, that this will leave you lacking.
Okay. What would be your I know you guys don't play a lot of, or like 4 is probably is very far removed from it. What would you think about this being like played at 2? Do you think it would work for a 2-player game, or does it become too zero-sum at that point?
I don't know. I mean, because there's only one person, it's probably easier to care about what that one person's doing. But it's a lot easier in this game to just like spread out and do your own thing. That like you can if you want to stop somebody from winning, you can go attempt to try and get their forts. So there is a way for you to actually interact like near the like fort end game. If you want to if this person is ahead of you, you take their fort because you only place one fort for each player. So there's only 2 forts with 2 players. So if you take both of them, the other person cannot win without attacking you. So I think that it could be more direct there, but you have to, like, it's a lot easier for each person to just take their own fort and sort of do their own thing. So you would have to be the one that pushed it, and then they would respond with, direct action. But it's, yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
And that's your.
What would you think of that
review
game what would you think of it at 2 players, Jeff?
Probably would want 3 at least.
Yeah, I think 3 is still the sweet spot, because you have the extra people, but you also don't have all that time to waste.
Yeah, and that's your review of the Civilization expansion.
Correct.
Yeah, right on. Any other games you guys played that you want to talk about?
I picked up that pinball roll and write. We didn't play it, but it seems cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was worried that there was only going to be one of each pinball table, because the way it made it look. Yeah, well, not even just you have to share. It was just like it talked about playing with multiple people, but it was it sounded like everybody would have their own board, own different board, and I was like, well, how can you compare how each person did if you're all just using boards other than everybody plays each board once and then then you see who did the best. But it makes more sense now that there are 4 of each, and it's dry erase, which is nice.
Yeah, I
do want to try it at one point. So
yeah,
check
awesome.
It's on Tabletop Simulator or something like that already.
Yeah. I played a little bit more of the Root app. It's helping me, I think, realize, and I think this will benefit me when I go back to actually playing in person again, is that sometimes, depending on what faction you play, I've been playing a lot of Irie, or Erie, or however you want to say it, depending on your pronunciations. It's helped me realize that sometimes you just get card fucked. Since you have to add cards to your decree, and sometimes, the cards you get are just going to be cards that you can't really work with, especially long term. Whereas other times you'll get, things that every draw just works perfectly for, oh yeah, this will go right here where I was planning to do this, and I can keep doing it every turn. And so that'll help me not get as salty if I'm playing the birds and get stomped by bad card draws in a real game. I also like that whenever I do start to get salty in the app, I can just quit and walk away. All right, well, done with this one. Moving on. I think I'm going to transition to playing a bit more as the Vagabond, because that's one faction I've never really played much in person, and I'd like to get some experience with them. Ditto for the little
Cats?
Robin Hood guy. No, I've played
Alliance.
Yeah. Oh, see, yeah. So that's who I meant when I was thinking of when I said Vagabond. But yes, Woodland Alliance. I also need to play more as, because I have not played. I think in real life, I don't think I've played either of those factions. So I think that's another area that the app will be really good for, is helping you get used to how they play before you play it in person. So that's pretty cool.
Very exciting.
Yeah. But I think that kind of wraps up what we've been playing, at least board game wise. So we can move into some banter, and we can banter about things like video games that we've been playing and stuff.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have much. I've still just been trying to get through that game of Stellaris that I mentioned last week, and maybe the week before. So yeah. So I don't have much video game. I don't think I've even played Among Us this week. I don't have any good Among Us stories.
Played some of that Star Wars Squadrons.
It looks real good. Makes me wish I had a VR set. I know you can play it without VR, but I feel like I don't want to.
It's definitely cool in VR, but I think we've talked about that. Probably going to reinstall World of Warcraft. The pre-patch starts tomorrow. It's literally downloading right now.
Yeah, I downloaded mine the other day, but I think it's just, I want to say this is because they delayed World of Warcraft, the Shadowlands expansion. Because from what I've heard, that beta was not going well.
Yeah, they need to stick this one, or it might be
with what happened with Battle for Azeroth. Yeah, I want to say that was one of, if not the most disliked expansion.
Definitely the most disliked expansion.
But I think they're actually doing two pre-patches. They're doing one that's going to be just the changes. The Shadowlands style changes of the level squish and chromie time for leveling up alts,
Mhm.
and like those sort of things. But then the next one will actually have the like pre-patch event.
Yes. The event is not in this one, but
Yes.
yeah, it'll be weird being at like level 50 cap,
Yes.
which has
yes, it
literally
will.
not happened since vanilla.
Correct. And that wasn't even a cap. It was just,
No.
now you can go into Eastern Plaguelands, and then
You got 10 more levels.
you got 10 more levels, and this has about 5 more levels worth of quests, and then good luck. Yep.
Guess you gotta do dungeons. Skullmance. 20 man?
Skullmance.
It was a raid at one
ooh.
point.
I do remember
upper,
you could...
upper Blackrock.
Yep. Yeah.
Besides that, I don't think I've played much video game wise. I've just been painting. Painting Necrons. Even though I'm not really ever going to play Necrons, I'm still just painting the Necrons. Did I mention... I don't remember if I mentioned I picked up Blackstone Fortress.
You did.
I don't remember. Okay.
I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast or just in
You mentioned
person.
on the podcast that you got it. It was when we were
Okay.
talking about Hero Quest.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes. Might just start assembling the Blackstone Fortress stuff and do that next. The Space Marine Codex came out, along with the Necron Codex, so these are the first 2 9th edition codices that are out. Games Workshop did something different with this, where you could get an actual like digital copy with your purchase, which is pretty cool. Downside is they have that really terrible app that you can subscribe to $5 a month, and it gives you all of the factions and codexes and chapter proofs and FAQs and stuff, and with the $5 a month it unlocks it. But with the $5 a month, now that the new codexes are out, it doesn't unlock the new codexes. It just unlocks all the old stuff. So the old codex is now gone away, and if you were paying $5 a month to get even just the old Space Marine info, now you can't get that at all, and you have to go buy a $50 codex to be able to get that digital information in the app. So that kind of sucks.
Yeah, that sounds like it really sucks.
Yeah. As well as like the army builder that's supposed to be in that app. This app launched whenever 9th edition, like before 9th edition came out. The army builder is still not even in there, so you can't even use that. It's pretty half-assed. But I do really enjoy their paint app because it gives you paint scheme recommendations and has good inventory and tells you how to be like, hey, you should do this, and then you should dry brush with this, and then you should ink with that, and it makes it look real good. So that's what I've been using more, for sure. But 40k is going to happen. It's going to happen. It's getting close to happening. Thursby has his 50 power level of orc army ready to go, so we will soon be smashing orcs into Space Marines in no time. And one more piece of news, we got the Tapestry expansion in.
Mm-hmm.
Plans
Oh,
and
yeah.
ploys. I did
Yeah.
some digging through that, and I have more details, I guess, on what's in there.
Okay.
The coolest thing, in my opinion, it added some new, there was the trap cards that you could play to, like, cancel a conquer, and that was kind of like the only Tapestry card that interacted with combat in that kind of way. But they added 5 new ones in that aren't just traps, but just have to do with conquest. There's one that's canceling your trap card. It's a double cross, so if someone plays a trap card, you can cancel their trap card.
Okay.
There's there's one called Surrender. You can discard it from your hand when you get conquered. If you do, you roll the conquer dice after the opponent, and then you gain the results. So you surrender and get like a free conquer rolls worth of results.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. You can move, you can retreat, you can move your outpost to an adjacent territory you control, even one with 2 tokens, and you gain like a manpower. You can discard this from your hand when an opponent tries to conquer your territory if you are further advanced on the military track than they are. If you do, you topple their outpost and gain 15 points. The picture is funny. It's like a bunch of medieval dudes trying to fight a tank, like a modern tank. It's like, sorry, lesser military people, you are not gonna get it done. And then a bunch more Tapestry cards. The other thing that we were talking about was the landmark cards. So these get handed out, 1 to each player, that give you a specific goal that only you can do, but you get a landmark. You get one of those fancy buildings for completing it, and they're fairly large. But things like if you have at least one tech in your top row, gain this landmark. If you end your turn and you have at least 6 exploration tiles in your supply, gain this landmark. So they're like little goals that just give you a landmark, so you're not just getting landmarks off of the tapestry cards, the tech cards, or the board. Some more space tiles, and they actually reprinted that misprinted space tile and replaced it in this.
Oh, okay.
10 new civilizations, 7 new landmark minis, 5 for the cards, 1 new tapestry card building, 1 new space tile building. It's a monolith. And then there is a solo mode in this with like various scenarios. So you can play Automa and Shadow Empire with like a solo mode with like a campaign of like the fate of Atlantis, and there's 5 different scenarios that come with this. So that seems cool for a lot of people that really love all the Stonemaier, Automa level stuff.
Sure.
And they have printed the civilization adjustments on the back of the little rule book. So you can look up the adjustments for the old civilizations because they did not reprint the new civilizations. They did not reprint the old civilizations. And it comes with like a little linen bag to put the exploration tokens in, so you don't have to do them in stacks or anything anymore. Just pull from a bag.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a pretty tiny expansion, but I think it's, it's more. It's just more. Unlike Civilization, which was a revamp, this is just a little more. Here's a little more. You guys want a little more? You got a little more.
Tapestry is currently one of my monitorizers.
Great.
Downfall's the other one.
Hooray.
Oh, fun stuff. Yeah, I need to like clean off the table in here so I can shoot top-down video and do like unboxing of those Gray Fox games we talked about at the start of the show and things like that. And we could do more stuff like, figure out some way to stream some of the other things that we're still getting and that we will get to at some point.
Yes.
Hopefully in the spring. I feel like I'm feeling good about the spring. 6 more months.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're lucky.
Yeah. I don't really have anything else bantery. Weather's been uneventful.
It was
Sports.
windy.
Oh, it was crazy windy yesterday. I have a bunch of like small branches in my yard that I need to go clean up on like my day off on Wednesday.
Jester's not helping with that?
The front yard.
Okay.
She doesn't. If she was allowed into the front yard, we would.
Never see
I
her
wouldn't
again?
say I wouldn't say that because she is actually like moderately contained by like not wanting to get too far away from us. Like when we take her to an off-leash dog park, she'll run way ahead, but she constantly looks back to see where we are. And there's been a couple times where she's lost us. Like she's ran in a big circle with a bunch of other dogs and then starts looking in the wrong direction for us. And we can see her, but she can't see us. And she does get a little like, oh, fuck, I messed up. Oh, shit, what the fuck? And then we yell, hey, Jester. And then like she sees us and like wind sprints straight to us, but then doesn't stop. Like she swings, it's like a drive-by. She just swoops like real close to us. Like, okay, you're still here. This is you. And then she's back off doing whatever she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a comet making a close approach to a star, just slingshotting around it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, sports-wise, Broncos were supposed to play tonight, but then the Patriots all have COVID, and so the entire game got postponed, which rearranged so many, like, there was a thread about, like, all of the scheduling changes the NFL had to make this work, and it's ridiculous. And I feel bad for whatever intern probably got stuck with that shit job. But the
and
Chiefs
didn't that end
lost.
up like? Didn't that actually like help the Patriots too?
Yes, they only had to go one game without their new, not Tom Brady star quarterback Cam Newton because he was hurt, I think. And yeah, a lot of people have been joking that there weren't any other cases, that it's all a Bill Belichick lie to have gotten an extra bye week for his quarterback to heal because, the Patriots are notorious cheaters.
It's COVID gate, right?
Yeah, exactly. COVID gate. Really, it just goes to show how ill prepared the NFL was to actually like do this season. Like, they should have had other plans in place, like play a shortened season and then have a few weeks at the back end. Like, if you can't play a game in this week, it gets moved to the end of the season, or like stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of different ways they could have. I feel they could have prepared better than what they're doing, where they're basically rewarding the teams who are handling COVID poorly and punishing the teams that have handled it well. So, I don't know. I haven't been paying attention really all that much. Apparently, yesterday, from the day of recording, the Chiefs and the Raiders played. And normally that's, as a Broncos fan, that's like giant meteor territory. But the Raiders beat the Chiefs, and it was like the first time the Chiefs quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, has lost by more than 7 points in his like 3-year career. And it was the first time the Chiefs have lost in over a year. So that was pretty great because, man, fucking Chiefs. It's all my hatred of the Chiefs right now is pure jealousy, but it's nonetheless potent for that. But yeah, that's all I've got for sporting updates. Somebody in the Slack channel shared a meme about the last team to win in the New York Stadium where both the Giants and the Jets play was like the XFL team in like February. Yeah. The Browns are like fucking 4-1 right now, 3-1, something like that. The Browns are doing exceedingly well.
Is this their season?
It may be. The Falcons coach has already been fired. And I think there's one other coach that's already been fired. Yeah, the Texans coach. So the Falcons and the Texans so coaches have already been fired 4 or 5 weeks into the season. Yeah, 2020, man. It's no good for sports. It's no good for anything.
Yeah, dude.
So we all watch, last little bit of bantery thing. So we all watch the, pitch meetings, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So the guy who does pitch meetings, Ryan George, recently did a pair of videos, one on his channel and one on her channel, with another of my favorite YouTube people right now, Julie Nolke, I think is her name. She's like a
that
Canadian.
Is correct, yes. Yep.
Person. She like kind of blew up back at the start of the pandemic for doing like me talking to my past self, and there's now been like a second and a third version of it. They're fantastic. And that's what introduced me to her, and then a lot of her other content is fantastic. And then their crossover episode was especially fantastic.
It was the first people to get married and then the first people to get divorced.
Yeah. He has a whole sideshow of like the first person to do X thing.
Yeah. Like the first person to go on a vacation, the first person to
open a restaurant.
You open a restaurant or rob somebody or So
and they're both like the comments were full of people who were like, wow, my 2 favorite YouTubes who do videos where they talk to themselves. Because he does stuff where like he plays multiple characters, but it's always just him. Whereas she does like one of her like main skits is she talks to like the magic mirror that's just like her drunken, lazy self who insults her a lot. So they just talk to each other a lot, or to themselves in their videos. And then they did a video where they talked to each other, and it was great.
I really liked just one of the jokes from the divorce one where he's just like, I think I'd rather just look at myself. And I was like, hey.
Hey.
Yeah, that one was great. The wedding one was great too. We're going to have 3 parties.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that can wrap up banter, and we can move along with this show. So there's no bloody minute. Apparently you guys finished up the last, well, not you specifically, Jeff, but the people who you were waiting on finished their games, and so you'll be moving on to the new round shortly.
Yes. The new. We don't have to like wait for anything, but there's only 4 games that happen each round, and half of them took 3 weeks to happen. So now the rest of everyone else can finally play. Because I feel the 2 games that finished were waiting on the 4 teams from the ones that hadn't played so they could play them. So no one could really get ahead.
Okay. And then you guys continue to not play Kingdom Death because you play other games instead.
This time it was because people were not available.
Yeah, we weren't going to have any Kingdom Death this week anyways, which is why we played Civilization and Arkham Horror.
There
Correct.
You go. So that lets us move basically right out of banter and straight into news in Kickstarter, but there's also not any news. So we're just going to go straight into Kickstarter.
Yeah, I think the Essen stuff is supposed to drop soon. So maybe that's
Sure.
why there's no news. Usually there's no news around this time of year because of Essen. So maybe it's happening because of that this year.
Maybe.
Maybe. We have Kickstarters, because no news.
Yeah, we do.
First up in Kickstarter, we have High Rise, the Ultra Plastic Edition. This one is just funded with $54,000 of its $50,000 goal, 770 backers, with about 2 weeks left to go, and its most popular pledge being the all-in for $95.
So by the Ultra Plastic Edition, you mean the original edition, right?
Yes.
That's what you meant to say?
The original
Yeah.
edition that did not fund, that they took out all of the plastic and put in standees, and then it funded, so now they're doing it the way it was meant to be originally.
Yep. And it has funded, so good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that they had the plastic initially. But yeah. So we talked about High Rise back in the past. It's
I
a
had an
city
interview
building.
with the Gilhova.
Yes.
Around
About
Gen
it. Yes. And yeah, so it's a game by Gilhova, city building strategy board game. And it's one where it's not a rondel, but can never remember the term for when it's your turn, you can move as far forward as you want on the track and take whatever action you land on. And then it goes to whoever's the furthest back on the track, it's their turn. And so if you go short distances, you can take a bunch of little turns, or you can jump way ahead to take, something that you really want. Similar mechanism like Patchwork does that.
Sakaido also does that.
Tokaido, yeah. So and there's a word for it, and it's killing me that I can't remember that term. Oh, yeah, one of the reviews says rondel, but I feel like that's not no, it is rondel. It is rondel. I was thinking of Moncala. It's not a Moncala, it's rondel. So anyway, rondel for action selection in High Rise. And yeah, you're just
Some
trying
would
to build
also
all
call
these.
it a time track.
Yes, it is a similar mechanic to the time track. Because you're talking about Time
That's what the-
Stories. No, Time Stories has a time track, but it's not a rondel.
Correct.
I've never heard it referred to as a time track.
It's a
That really threw
mechanic
me
on
off.
BGG, and it's listed for High Rise, so I assume
Weird.
that's what it's called.
Weird. I have never heard that used as the mechanic, as the term for that mechanic.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, you're going along doing these different actions along the rondel or time track. You can occasionally boost them up by taking corruption, which will make them better or worse. Oh, well, which will make them better, but may hurt you later, as there's different things that punish people for having corruption. So if it's a game where everybody does a lot of corruption, then you can probably get away with quite a bit without getting in trouble. If no one else is taking corruption and you take a bunch, it's probably going to hurt you. So it kind of balances in that regard. Yeah.
From what I remember being explained, if you have the highest corruption at the end of the game, you just straight up lose or something similar to
one
that.
of those.
Yeah. Or there are major negative points to that.
Gotcha.
The corruption track looks a lot like the Network's score track, by the way.
Yes. A few of their components look reminiscent of other Gilhova games.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you're going around that rondel, most of the spaces are made up of different tenants. You use 15 to 20 out of the 45 that's included in the game. And that kind of determines who wants to be moving into these high rises that you're building. And yeah, goes on basically in that way. They don't have a super rules overview on the Kickstarter that I saw. But we already talked about it before in the past. The big thing with this one is that they've got the option. You can pledge for just the base high rise that had previously funded and has pretty good reviews. Or you can now pledge that $95 pledge that Jeff was talking about to get all the sweet plastic high rises and skyscrapers and things to go in your game. Got 24 4-story pieces, 24 3-story pieces, 24 2-story pieces, 5 1-story pieces, 48 player cappers, 12 in each of the 4 different player colors, height markers, stackable spire pieces, all kinds of things like that let you build these awesome little skyscrapers. Well, not particularly little, but let you build skyscrapers on the board instead of using the cardboard standees. It also includes some extra tenants that were not in the base game, and some new power cards. And you can also just pledge if you want to, for $5 for the Fix-It kit, because there was some typos and misprintings that Gil says were his fault, not the printers, but that he is correcting with the $5 Fix-It kit if you want to get in on that.
And you can get the plastic.
Just the buildings and just the new tenants and the Fix-It kit. So if you have the original Kickstarter for $40, you can get the buildings, the kit, and the extra tenants from this Kickstarter to make your first Kickstarter version whole.
Yes.
And you can get it without plastic if you think that it's silly. So that's good.
Yes, you can still get just the base game with no plastic if you don't want plastic. All saying plastic this much is making me think of Mean Girls for some reason. But anyway, stretch goals, they've got a couple. They haven't gotten anywhere near them. Like Jeff said, it's just barely funded. The first stretch goal at 75,000 is doubling the amount of extra tenants that they add from 5 to 10. And then the $100,000 stretch goal is still just question marks. There are add-ons for like fancy bits. So you can get wooden, I-beam, plastic, ultra plastic cylinders, things like that.
Basically, your resource replacement, like meeple replacement for punchboard.
$10. Yeah. You can get wooden bases to replace the plastic clips for the base game. If you're using those standees and for some reason you want wooden bases, you can do that for $10.
And then just
you can get
multiple pledge levels of 2 copies, etc., like the retailer stuff.
Mix and match type things.
Yeah.
So, shipping's kind of somewhat reasonable. $15 to $25 for that super big plastic pledge, the $95 kind of all-in type pledge. $3 to $5 if you're just getting the $5 Fix-It kit. So it's really $8 to $10 for that Fix-It kit, depending on where you live. And it looks like maybe not Brazil or Russia. So if you live in Brazil or Russia, you're just shit out of luck. But yeah. Do you remember anything else about it, Jeff, that you want to talk about from your interview with him?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, there's a full-on Tabletopia version for this that you can just go and play.
Yeah.
If you want to play it, play it.
Yeah, I remember being fairly interested in this back when we talked about it before, but I didn't back it. And now that it's back and it's actually got, like, people have played it and it's got good reviews and it's sold out everywhere, it's like, well, maybe now is the time. Plus, it's Quanchi Moria art, which is also
always good.
Pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that is High Rise, the Ultra Plastic Edition. Go check it out if that sounds cool to you.
Next up on Kickstarter, we have Frostpunk, the board game. Extremely well funded. $1.3 million of its $236,000 goal. Over 10,000 backers and 2 weeks left to go. You can get it at its clearly most popular pledge level of the deluxe pledge for $148.
Yeah. So this is coming to you from the designers of Nemesis and This War of Mine, the board game. So they have experience making good, big Kickstarters that actually are good games that people like. And also translating, like in the case of This War of Mine, translating a very popular video game into a very popular board game. And so this is taking Frostpunk, which is a video game, city builder game, and turning it into a board game.
Which, just like This War of Mine, is also very depressing.
Yes. Yes. So this takes place in a steampunk universe where the world has basically died and is freezing to death. And you are playing in the video game, you by yourself are managing what is presumably the last settlement of humans alive anywhere, gathered around a giant furnace that has melted a hole in the now like worldwide ice shelf. And you can send out like scouts and things, and you find refugees, and you can choose to bring them in or not bring them in, and you have to manage heat, and people can freeze and like get frostbite and lose limbs, and then they can't work. They get sick if they're too cold, and you got to manage all kinds of shit, and you make like different ethical decisions that influence the way your game goes as you try to manage like all your resources in a typical like city builder type resource management video game.
Yeah,
I mean,
real time strategy game.
You
Yes,
got to have
RTS.
those kids work. Like,
Yes.
that's just the non-starter. You can't, and then, some people got to eat sawdust. I don't know. I don't know what to tell
I
you.
mean, desperate times call for desperate measures.
And it's
Yeah.
pretty desperate.
It is very desperate. So the board game kind of pulls that same thing in. So it seems, looking through this, like it's mostly geared towards solo play, but you can play 1 to 4 players, and you're kind of sim thing. You're building up this city around the giant furnace, and trying to keep everything alive. And so it's got a whole bunch of different buildings you can build that all kind of do different things. Give you different like action spots you can during one of the phases is like basically a worker placement, and so you send your workers to go work on all the different things. Other buildings are like their homes where they go back to at the end of the night, and if they don't have a home, then they get sick. And the big furnace in the center serves as a cube tower, and basically the way that works is one of the first phases of the game is weather. Of each round is the weather, and you see what the weather is, and that determines how much like coal you're going to need to feed into that furnace. And so you drop coal cubes into the cube tower, and whatever falls out is like the strain or the damage that the furnace takes, like running that hot. And if it takes too much damage, it can explode. So you got to kind of balance that. Don't feed in too much coal, or you might blow up your furnace, which is something you can also do in the actual game, the video game. And like as you go along, you can upgrade the generator, so you can add more like shelves and things in there, so it catches more of those cubes, so it takes less damage when you superheat it. You can also, like, another big part of the game is one of the buildings is workshops, which lets you research different technology. And they have all these different decks basically that kind of work together to really try to make this a narrative style board game.
Coming from the people that did this War of Mine, that sounds right.
Yeah. So there's event cards that are morning, dusk, and then like laws and consequences. And like as you make decisions from different cards, you shuffle different cards into those decks so that the consequences of your decisions will come back through those decks. They're not particularly big decks. And that kind of gives it more of a narrative feel as you play it. It does additionally come with 13 different scenarios, which is like the main way you play it. You pick a scenario, and then you play across a certain amount of rounds based on the scenario. And that'll kind of determine, what your goals and objectives are for that particular game. Like I said, it's 1 to 4 players. So if you want to play with more than one person, you just take on different roles. So if you're one player, you just do everything.
It sounds like this War of Mine, where that was really more of a solo game with
multiple people making the same decision.
Yeah.
Or like coming to a group decision, yeah.
Yes. So hopefully they do a little better, I guess. This War of Mine was a fine enough game, but the way they did multiplayer didn't feel great.
Yeah. The way this sounds, so like basically the 4 roles that you can take on are social, health, generator, and resources. And they say that it eases the learning curve and distributes responsibility. So I feel like during those different phases, because those are all different phases of the game, whoever is in charge of that is supposed to do everything. Obviously, you want to kind of communicate with each other, but it kind of gives you like sort of veto power. So like you're not getting like quarterbacked. And then the action phase is just a shared phase where everybody kind of works together. So I don't know. It definitely does seem, I think, like more of a solo board game. Like it would work better as a solo board game. But it's a big stretch. They've got a couple stretch goals, like double layered player boards, thicker player boards, all that kind of stuff. Their highest stretch goal is at 1,700,000 euro. They are going to develop Frostpunk, the board game app. And essentially, from what I can gather from what they're talking about with this game, you can play your own solo game. But as you play, you'll interact with the app. And that can potentially, like, you could play with your friends. Like, if you all have a copy, you could all sit in your own homes playing your own solo game of it and using the app to kind of interact like your different settlements in the same world. So what everybody does in their city can affect other cities somewhat. I'm not sure. They don't give a ton of information on it.
They're not very clear about what that is. It's just like
Yeah.
other
But
people
they
playing
definitely
solo games, other people playing co-op games that you can co-op in with, and
Yeah. So, and it's like way down the stretch goal list, so we'll see if they get there. I mean, they're actually not that far from it.
yeah,
They're
it's
at
making a lot of
1,300.
money.
So yeah. And they even try to like spin kind of COVID stuff into part of their pitch for the app is like, hey, we can't really play games with other people right now, but if you pledge this enough and we get this app, then you'll be able to play with other people through the app in, I don't know, estimated delivery October 2021. I hope we can play board games in person again regularly by October 2021 in like larger groups. But we'll see. One of the other kind of cool things from this Kickstarter, the base game still comes with like the big cube tower. And then you can get all the other fancy minis if you pledge that more deluxe one. Both versions of them, all of the minis for people who pledge one of the actual game pledges in the Kickstarter, they come pre-washed. So they'll have some cool depth and like, texturing from the pre-wash.
Yeah.
But that's not available if you do the pledge manager pledge. Like if you just pledge $1 to get into the pledge manager, you'll have to pay extra in the pledge manager to get pre-wash. So if you really want pre-wash, you're just going to have to go ahead and drop at least $89, if not the full $150 for the deluxe. So, but nice of them to give you options.
Who doesn't love options?
Indeed. So yeah, that's Frostpunk the board game. Go check it out.
Last up on Kickstarters, we have Cartographers Heroes. Very well funded, $237,000 of its $20,000 goal. 4,400 backers. Just about a week left for this one that you can pledge at its most popular pledge level of $50.
Indeed. So this is a standalone expansion for Cartographers, as well as 3 different map expansions for Cartographers. Plays 1 to 100 players, takes 30 to 45 minutes. And Jeff, you have gotten to actually chat with them a little bit more about this game, not to mention the fact that you are a resident Cartographers owner and aficionado. So how about you take this one away?
So I did an interview with Keith over Gen Con Online weekend. Super cool guy from the Madison, Wisconsin area. We talked a bit about this. So the thing Cartographers Heroes is adding, which I'm sure you can guess, is heroes. So there are a bunch of new monster types, which was a thing that people really liked in Cartographers. So now there will be monsters doing, I don't know, different things that you will need to specify what kind of monster is in that space with a letter. Like Zombie Plague will have a little Z in the purple area, but after scoring each season, draw a zombie in each empty space adjacent to a zombie. So it starts as a 1x1, and then will quadruple in size after the end of that season. So
I mean,
fuck that.
What you do is you just let the zombie off in the corner. Just let it build itself out until it's all packed full with zombies. In which case, they aren't they're worth 0 points. That's
yes. There you go.
Corral them off to the side, and then it's fine.
Yes, I'm sure whoever gets to draw that on your sheet will just put it right in the corner for you.
Yes.
So there'll be a dragon space, but or dragon spaces, but when you surround or destroy it, you get a bunch of gold coins. Giant trolls that will destroy an empty space adjacent to it, so you'll actually have to erase spaces if it's next to areas. And then the Gorgon that will the person that places it down will destroy a non-mountain space adjacent to the Gorgon. So your opponent can actually destroy a space from yours. So heroes are added to kind of balance that out, so the monsters don't just ravage all over you. So there's going to be a bunch of new scoring cards. The scoring cards, from what I remember, will be either or. Use the Cartographer ones or the Cartographer Hero ones. I don't think they can mix and match. The 4 new ambush cards, of course, but now 4 new heroes. So those will have special abilities. They'll have different shapes. Where you put the hero, it's like a 1x1 square, but it will destroy monsters in various shapes around it. So, like the dwarven guy will orthogonally destroy monsters around it. So if you got it in the center of a monster space, like that Gorgon, it would destroy everything around him. There's one that's Ren the Lioness, that's clearly a cavalry charge of some sort, that will sort of do a T, but only at like the top of the T will it destroy the monsters. There's an archer that will destroy 3 in front of it. So it gives you that little, boost for all of these boosted monsters. It'll also come with 8 new skill cards. We've never really played with the skill cards. They were like a little Gen Con promo pack thing that I got that you can spend your gold on and get like a benefit of various role player-like skills, D&D-like skills. Beyond that, you have the 3 new map packs. So there is the Undercity, Nebulous, which is like a volcano land, the Undercity, which is actually like a vertical map, and then the Afrill, which is a like floating island map, like in the sky islands. So the Undercity one, you actually have to build from top to bottom. You'll fill in the top like 2 rows, and then you'll have to fill in down from there. It's the above ground and below ground, and then there's some special
Yes.
Explorer cards is the words I was trying to think of. Each of these maps comes with its own comes with some special Explorer cards that are just for that sheet. So you get a little more flavor to what's going on there, and that's how like the volcano will explode, or how you discover the different floating islands with different patterns.
Well, yeah, and it looks like the floating islands one and then the Undercity ones, they have specific scoring cards.
Yes.
That replace the pattern of the previous one.
Yeah. Because
okay.
it's because certain scoring cards just can't work on those weird maps.
Correct.
And then there's a whole bunch of new exploration cards. They have rulebooks for everything up already. I don't think there's any major, rules changes. It seems like it's going to just add some more onto there. Of course, this will come with the box to contain all of the stuff. So there is a big Cartographer's box that will be able to hold all the content from Cartographers Heroes, everything from Cartographers. That $50 pledge level I was talking about will come with Heroes, the box, the 3 map packs, the Skills Expansion 2, and 20 colored pencils.
Whoa.
Look at that. They actually have like 4 sets of them now instead of wasn't like the fancy edition. It was just 1 set.
Yes, it was the one that came with the playmat.
And
it came with 1 set of colored pencils as well. I mean, it's, continues to be more cartographers, which is kind of what people would like there to be. So that's what will happen.
And its estimated delivery is July, which isn't, that's 9 months away. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
No, it's not too bad at all.
Not bad at all. You can get a playmat, I guess, if you want a playmat to have the cards sit on. Because that's all it's for. I
saw that playmat and I was like,
pass.
No, pass. Yeah.
Pass.
Hard pass.
Hard pass. So yeah, I'll probably get that $50 pledge level.
Good.
For the stuff, I mean, you can always, of course, just get... It's like $40 for everything else, or you can get the Cartographer Heroes Retail Edition, Cartographer Heroes Collector's Edition.
Well, so the new Recruit Cartographer all-in comes with the red playmat, and I'm like, it looks like you can add cartographers just as its own thing. So if I got this, it would be the legendary with the $22 cartographer, so that'd be like $77 or $72.
Yeah, if you
'Cause
didn't already own cartographers.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I do not.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Cartographers Heroes. From what I remember in the interview, there will be like more heroes added, more ambush cards added, inevitably. Like, I have a promo pack of 4 new like ambush creatures that you can toss in there.
Cool.
Yeah, it's more.
Indeed.
People want more. More.
People always want more.
And that's it for Kickstarters.
Indeed. Which wraps up the entire no news and Kickstarter segment.
Yes.
Allowing us to move on to listener feedback with Jeff's favorite part of listener feedback coming up right away.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com if you would like to send us an email. As Mr. Andrew, the hater, famous hater, in fact, sent us this email, which is titled, "More Biblical Literalism in Board Games, Please." Hey guys, believe it or not, I'm not writing in to complain about anything you did. Instead, I'm writing in to complain about the theme of the game you talked about last week, Blabble. It sounds like a fun enough game, but it makes an extremely basic mistake about chronology. According to Genesis, everyone in the world spoke the same language, and it was only after the tower was built and God became scared of humanity's ability to work together that he gave everyone different languages. Please try to pull some strings to see if you can get this error corrected. Thank you, Andrew. P.S. On a similar note, I wanted to mention an issue I have with Dinosaur Island.
I take issue because now I could be wrong. It has happened from time to time.
No.
But I feel like in the biblical story, like he is correct, everyone started off speaking the same language. And then they got together and they're like, hey, let's build a tower to heaven. And then for some reason enough people were like, yeah, that's a great idea. And they started coordinating and doing that. And it was going very well. And then God said, well, this can't be. Everybody speaks different languages now. But they still tried to build the tower. They just couldn't anymore because nobody spoke the same language, which I feel like so Tower of Blabble just takes place in that second phase when nobody speaks the same language anymore, but you're still trying to build the tower. I didn't feel like they succeeded in the Bible at building a tower to heaven. Also, you just can't do that. But
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I do know you can build a ladder to heaven, but I don't know about no tower.
Mm-hmm.
What about a stairway?
Only ladders.
Only ladders.
So I don't know. Unfortunately, I feel like it'd be I don't know. Now I'm curious about how you could implement the game where you start building the tower in the same language, and then midway through it, a wrathful God makes you all switch languages.
I feel like that first half of the game is going to be a lot easier.
And that's it for emails.
That is.
At milehighgameguys.com.
And indeed, that is it for listener feedback in general. So, pretty much wraps up that whole segment. If you would like to give us feedback, there's a bunch of different ways to do so. You can send us emails.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
You can find us over on Twitter, where I tweet under at MHGameGuys.
I am Zach_MHGG.
I am Jeff_MHGG.
We also have our Instagram account at MHGameGuys. We have our Facebook page, facebook.com/MHGameGuys. And our website, milehighgameguys.com, has links to things like our Slack channel, where all kinds of different shenanigans happen, talking about like sports and board games and video games and movies. There's been nearly weekly threads on The Boys, which wrapped up last weekend, and Lovecraft Country in the movie and TV section. So feel free to join the Slack. There's no requirement other than you track down the link, whether that's messaging us directly or, like I said, going to the website and finding a link there. Come join it. It's a lot of fun. There's a bunch of good people in there. And then you can also find our BGG guild on the website, guild number 2731. There is a thread up there where if you have questions for us, you can ask them. And the thread is getting longer and longer because we'd meant to do a Q&A stream way back right before COVID hit. And then COVID happened and we didn't want to do it remotely. And so now we're just accumulating questions. And at some point when we're back in the studio, we will do a Q&A episode and you answer all those questions. And so you can leave questions that you want answered at some point in the future. Maybe. And then lastly, there's our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/MHGameGuys, where we will be streaming stuff at some point again in the future, and where Mile High Dungeon Delvers currently streams every other Tuesday. So go check that out. That's all the ways to get a hold of us / interact with us besides just listening to the podcast. So go do all those things. And while you're at it, be sure to go to our sponsor's website, greyfoxgames.com. Buy some non-exclusive items. Once you have bought, well, then go to checkout. And in the checkout section, there is a coupon code area where you can enter the coupon code MHSPOOKY, SPOOKY, MHSPOOKY, and you'll get 20% off of those non-exclusive items that you order over on greyfoxgames.com because they are our sponsors. And as such, they wanted to pass some of the love they show to us onto you by giving you 20% off, which is a pretty sweet deal. So go check that out. They also, as of the time you're listening to this, but not the time of recording, basically tomorrow, once we're done recording, they will be launching their latest Kickstarter, Campaign Trail, with the Green Party expansion, which is a updated version of the board game Campaign Trail, along with that new expansion, new kind of updated art, new candidates, new events, new endgame goals, all kinds of stuff to kind of change and mix up the game. So go check that out over on Kickstarter. Campaign Trail, Green Party expansion from Grey Fox Games. Jeff, do you have a prepared statement for us?
Of course. Grey Fox Games, quality games, cleverly crafted. Also, excellent speech, my friend. Gift of the silver tongue. They say it's the mark of a good officer. And of a liar. Americans are too in love with the sound of their own voice to speak the truth.
Damn. Dark.
Yarp.
Yeah. That wraps up the episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening. As always, I've been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I'm Lower Decks Jeff.
Bye.
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 Punchboard Media, where we all
bring something
to the table.
Pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.